Oh, thank you. All right, let's get started. Hi, my name is Angela, and I am here today to talk to you about anodizing the reactive or refractive metals. I am a jeweler, and I am a graduate gemologist, and I wear a couple of other hats. But today what we're going to talk about is mad science in the jewelry environment. I have a number of pieces of equipment in front of me that you're probably all wondering why I brought these in, because this is how it happens. This is my power supply. It also has a rheostat, and this is what I use to pass electricity through the metal that I'm going to use to produce what's called interference colors. The first thing I'd like to pass around for everybody to look at is two examples of the colors that you can get on the material. The big rectangular piece is titanium. The smaller earrings are niobium. That is not caused by dyes or pigments of any kind. That is caused by an oxide layer on the surface of the stone that returns light in such a way where you see it as color. In reality, the metal is still gray. What makes this very cool from a jeweler's perspective is that it is hypoallergenic. There's nothing in there that's going to cause people to have problems. There's no nickel, the metal is not alloyed, it's commercially pure, which is 0.999, which for my purposes is pure. And you're probably wondering what the color differences are, and that's the voltage. As I put more voltage through the metal, I get more color and different colors. Most metals, when you do this process, are not going to work with this because they're not refractive. Refractive in this context means a metal that is part of the refractives group on the periodic table of elements. That means that they all have an extraordinarily high melting temperature. They're extremely stable at normal temperatures. They're hard, and in gross metallurgical terms, they're sticky. They don't like to machine well. They deform easily. They're plastic rather than elastic. But the one thing that they all share in common from all that has to do with this is that you can pass an electric current through them, and you can lay down an oxide layer in a controlled pattern or controlled manner. That's different from just, say, oxidization, which you also know as rust. Rust usually does not happen in a controlled environment, and rust also tends to leach materials from the bottom layer and effectively weakens whatever is rusted. That does not happen with this. So, you've heard about my electric supply. This sad little bowl is my anodizing chamber. You can do anodizing in pretty much anything that's glass or hard plastic. Do not use metal. The stuff in here, this is Trisodium Phosphate. You know it as soap. But it's a special kind of soap that most people use to wash walls with, to prepare them for painting and whatnot. It's safe, it's salty, doesn't taste very good. But the reason that it's here is because what this does is it acts as a wetting agent, and it breaks the surface tension on the water. I could anodize in just plain water, but as you probably know, water likes to bubble up, doesn't create necessarily a very consistent surface, which means that you can introduce bubbles and other variants into your anodizing, which you probably don't want. So you don't need a whole lot of TSP, and you can use other things. I've used Sparix, I've used Coke, the stuff you drink. You can tell I've done this before. The main purpose of adding something is to either clean the metal or to break the surface tension of the metal, but more often than not, it's to clean the metal and break the surface tension. Because most people tend to do this work with their hands. Your hands have oil, you can't help it. Which is why when it's time for everybody to do their own, you'll see that the pieces that are flat are all put in plastic bags. So when you select one and you take it out, make sure not to put a thumbprint on it, otherwise you'll have a great anodizing of your thumbprint. All right, so we have a bowl, TSP, water. We have a strainer here because I'm lazy and I don't always want to have to fish things out. This is a cathode strip. This is a piece of titanium that I have very cleverly fastened together. And this is what attaches to the red lead to produce the environment necessary to anodize. You know what? I was too excited. We don't need this right now. What you normally do when you're anodizing is you attach your thing whatever it is you want to anodize to your black lead. You put it in the water, you flip the switch, you turn up the rheostat to get the color voltage that you want. The process is very fast. And then you turn off the switch. Important safety tip, don't touch the metal when you have the switch on. And you get a bright, shiny thing. However, this stuff coats, and as you know, water and steel that's not stainless produces rust. So I usually use an intermediary step, and I make what's called a lead. This is some scrap niobium that I happen to have at home, so I brought enough we can make a couple of leads. And I basically just bend it into a J-hook. I attach my lead, and now I don't have to insert my alligator clip into the water where it will rust. Also, I don't have to touch the thing that I'm anodizing, which means that I'm much more likely to get a clean anodize. So we're going to do a really simple dip for you guys to watch. Since you've had a chance to look at the samples I sent around, does anybody have a color preference? What would you like to see first? So my necklace is a blue-green ombre. So to do that, we start about at 82 volts. There we go. And we put it in there and we let it happen. As you can see, it's very exciting. I'm sure everybody's watched water bubble before. Oh, mother of God, this isn't niobium wire. I don't know what I grabbed. Okay, we're going to do this a little differently. We're going to let one anodize the other, because I know these are niobium. I don't know what I did, but I did something exciting. What happened is your presenter is not as good at memorizing things as she should be. I just do it, you know. I don't think about it as a rule. La, 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 la. Reverse the leads. Aren't you glad you're paying money for this experience? Yeah. So now that I have the right leads on, this will actually happen now. There we go. All right, that's a pretty good blue.
That is fast.
Yep, this is a very quick process. And in order to get that ombre look, you simply insert it partway in and you pull out as you up the rheostat. It'll be easier if I pass this around for people to see.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually use this when I'm doing what I think of as batch anodizing. If I want to do a whole lot of things the same color, then I only have to set the rheostat once. I put all the parts in here, I stir it around with my lead, and I let it all anodize. I have a number of things that I do in my anodizing that have made me well known in the circles I sell, and one of them is I'm very good at doing what's called rainbow or dip dye or ombre. There's a couple of different names out there. But doing a rainbow anodize is very similar to doing the blue-green, but you normally want to start with a base color of like a yellow. So we're going to go down to 60 volts DC, which is about where yellow starts. And then I'm going to start pulling it out of the water as I turn up the rheostat. And a reasonable rainbow. Not a perfect rainbow. This is not a controlled environment. If that plate is floating around somewhere, I'll toss these on there so people can look at it. It is very dependent on a couple of factors that are usually outside of my control because I'm kind of a wash and wear person. You know, if you're using distilled water, you can have more control. If you're measuring out your TSP and you're buying it from a scientific supply as opposed to Home Depot where I get mine, the purity and that is more controllable, so you can map it more closely. But it's also very dependent on the electrical system of where you're doing it. I have house current, which is not perfect, which means that occasionally I'll get fluctuations. So you can get close, but one of the nice things about this material is that you can acid etch all of the anodized surface off and start again. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next part of the presentation. I know you're all so excited.
So does the color follow like the rainbow spectrum?
No, there is no red, because red is not a color that you can cause by interference. But if you look at oil slicks, it follows that pattern. And the amount of voltage, as I said, has a lot to do with where you go with that. So I have a bunch of these little pendants that I made up for everybody today, so you all can take something home. And what I'm going to demonstrate next is a dip anodize, and then some of the things that you can do to make surface textures or weird funky patterns with your anodizing. So let's again start with a fairly low voltage. Let's do this yellow. Yellow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fresh plate. It's a good thing plates are cheap. I'm going to go through a lot of them. I want all the plates. That's my fee for being here today. When you use a tool, you no longer need to use the cathode strip because you're not having to make the anodizing chamber, you don't have to pass an electric current through there. You're using this and this. So, Q-tips. I don't want to hear what you do with them at home. But in the context of anodizing, you can get electric current through a lot of things. In this case, a Q-tip. So let's be garish. Let's do purple. This is a crude process. As you see, I brought a paintbrush with a lead soldered to it for demonstration. But a lot of times you can do this with just household things. The electric pass-through falls off fairly quickly. So you need to make sure that the surface that you're pressing against your thing that you want to anodize is actually fairly close to the alligator clip. The longer you leave it, the more intense the color becomes until you have hit the voltage as high as it goes for that color. But you can do some fun things. I do some tiger stripes on some of the things that I sell. The other thing to remember too is that if you want to be more precise in your anodizing, you need to either mask with a special kind of tape called plater's tape. You can do like what silk screeners do, and you can use a resist-like wax. You can, go ahead and pass this one around. All the plates. I only did the top side, and I did very crude, so. So you can paint, and I'm going to do another one where you use a sponge. But if you've ever heard of a jeweler called Holly Yashi who does a lot of niobium pieces, what they do is a silk screen process. And they do up to 6 different silk screenings and anodizings, which is why they have very intricate, very, very detailed things. And they also have much better quality control than I do. They have a clean room. I have a studio. You are right, I am. Go ahead and ask questions. I'm already kind of flustered.
So I noticed you pick it up immediately. No heat generated?
No.
Never gets hot?
No. I mean, it can if you sit there and let it go for a couple of hours. But if it gets hot, that means that you have problems with your power supply, and you probably should turn it off and go get a new one. Now, you can put the pieces together to do this from things that you used to be able to buy at Radio Shack and would now buy on Amazon. But I found that for what I do, it was easier and faster to buy a commercial system. This cost me $100. It's my second anodizer in 30 years. They're pretty robust because you really don't do much with them. So you can see, again, kind of a yellow color. And this time we're going to use the sponge. I cut up a bunch of sponges in different shapes, well, 2 different shapes, and it works very much like what you saw me do with the Q-tip. One of the biggies here is do not put something dry against your niobium. Always make sure to use whatever liquid you're anodizing with, or just plain water. The reason is because it'll set on fire. So don't do that. Don't be that person. Don't ask me how I know. I forgot. I forgot. La la la. Can't take me anywhere.
Now, I see you handling it with your hands.
Yep.
You're not worried about fingerprints?
No, because I put my fingers in the TSP,
Ah.
and my fingers are a little slidey because of it. But your mileage can and will vary. Hear that noise? That's the noise of not wet enough. Now, I'm not getting a lot of success here because I'm too far away. I really got to get closer down. There we go. There we go. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Reverse the leads when you do this. It'd be helpful if I remember to do that myself, rather than setting things into that smell. As I said, at home, I just do it. I don't think much about it. And nowadays, I'm busy enough where most of my anodizing is just batch anodizing. I'm not doing as much creative work as I did a couple of years ago. But, you know, sports car, money. I have a Porsche to maintain. You can go up safely to about 110 volts DC before you start seeing some degradation of the material. And by that, I mean degradation of the anodic coating, not the niobium itself. So this is a very thin layer of oxide that we're putting on. It's between half an angstrom to an angstrom and a half thick, which, as you probably know, is not that thick. You can wear it off fairly easily, but you get to a point where you're putting on too much oxide layer and it will start to destroy itself, which is why past about 120 volts, which turns an ugly pink color, it then starts to peel and crack, and then you have to refinish your piece and start over. All right, this is a good example of what you can accomplish with a sponge if you're being kind of lackadaisical about it. Go ahead and pass that around. I make, please don't cringe, body piercing jewelry, which is how I got into this originally. I saw you cringe. I saw you do that. And one of the things that makes this material, along with titanium and to a lesser extent tantalum, very popular in the community is because it is a very strong, durable material, which means when you do stuff, it doesn't do anything. And as your body tries to heal a piercing, all the stuff that your body puts out to do so doesn't affect the color and does not affect the material in the slightest. Most people pierce with stainless steel, which, as you probably know, is alloyed with various other things. 316L, which is the standard for body piercing stuff, has a high degree of carbon. Also cobalt. There's a couple of other things that go into it. But what it has overwhelmingly that's an issue for a lot of people is nickel. About 1 out of 5 people have the nickel allergy, and most people see it as contact dermatitis. If you can't wear a watch because you make the back of the surface rough, if you find that, you know, your jeans bother you where the rivets are and stuff like that, that's almost certainly a nickel allergy. It's very, very common, and in the European Union, you cannot sell items for jewelry that have nickel in them. The United States is still a little behind on that. So, yeah. So I do a thing. And now comes the fun part. You know, you guys watched me, thank you, appreciate that, but now it's your turn. So I'd like everybody to pick out a thingy that they would like to anodize. And niobium, titanium, and tantalum are the most commonly used materials that you can buy commercially. I know some people do very, very exotic things with the ones that are verging into the noble metals like osmium and ruthenium, but I cannot buy that commercially. I can only buy, you know, material supply places like sample pieces, and little cubes of material are kind of boring. The other thing is they also tend to be really, really expensive, so there's not a lot of ability to mess around with them at my level. Niobium is my preferred metal of choice simply because it does not require an acid etch prior to coloring. Titanium does, and now there are safer acid etches on the market than the standard hydrofluoric or sulfuric. I use a product called multi-etch, and You know, it's nasty. My cats don't like it, but nobody will die from drinking it. Yeah, and because I work in a home environment and I have employees and I don't want to have to spend a lot of time instructing people on why you don't do that again. You know, that whole don't look into the laser with remaining eye? I have that staff. So this works really well for me in my environment because it is, I won't say it's foolproof because reasons, but it is very, very hard to do permanent, painful damage to yourself in this process.
That sounds like a challenge. It does. For some people, I'm sure it is. I was thinking something.
You know, when someone says, hold my beer and watch this, you should, because that may be the last time you see them alive.
And get your phone out.
I grew up white trash, so the idea of a couple of people in the back 40, you know, bashing something together with the blowtorch and whatever parts from the Ford farm, that feels very home-like. That feels very, very appropriate to me. So I approach a lot of my metal work in much the same way. I like things that can be done rough and ready. I am a bucket chemist at best. There are no test tubes. There are no finicky measurements. When I say 60 volts DC, that means anywhere from 58 to 62 and a half. So, who would like to try this? Get up here. I brought enough for everybody to take home a souvenir of their own, and it looks like we have enough where people can take home more than one if they want. So, right. Let me put my leads back on the way they're supposed to go. Alrighty. What do you got for me? Okay. Go ahead and take, here, you sit and you do it. In my shop, we have a phrase called look with your hands. And we're very big on looking with our hands because it's not enough to look at it, you have to be able to touch it and play with it. Gosh, I can't imagine.
Turn it on.
Wait for me. What voltage are you at? Oh, you don't want to be there. Let's go a little lower. I know you didn't.
Hit the power button.
All right, what color would you like to batch anodize?
Like your neck.
Blue-green, okay. So we're at 82 and a half. Go ahead and insert the entire piece into the anodizing chamber and just hold it there for a few moments. This will take a couple of seconds to come up to voltage. The clicking noises you hear are the relays. All right, pull it out. What color you got?
Ooh, pretty.
That's more of a purpley blue. Do you want a more blue?
Can I go blue?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead and put it back in. So the deal with anodizing is that you can always go up in voltage, but in order to go down, you have to remove the anodic coating. So what I usually do when I'm building something is I'll start with the lowest color that I use commercially, which is the yellow, and then I'll add color, or actually I'll add voltage there to change the color. And then when I screw up, I make the whole thing green, or I throw it in my acid pot and I etch it. Hey, go ahead and pull it out. Is that more the color you wanted?
Close.
You want to do a little more?
A little bit more.
All right. So if you want to do an ombre, if you want to do a dip dye, you need to not put the whole thing in. If you want more of a blue, put the whole thing in. I see how you are.
All the way.
I like you. Pull that out. Let's see what we got.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
That looks great.
Is that, no, don't touch. I haven't turned it off yet.
Oh, oops.
It will shock you. It will be unpleasant. It won't knock your teeth together or anything. Is that the color you want, or do you want to go with some green too?
Oh, gosh. Okay, a little bit of green.
All righty, then I want you to put it in about halfway. There you go. Now hold it as steady as you can. Now pull it out. You see what happened there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you want some actual green?
Yeah.
All right, then put it in about 2/3, or excuse me, 1/3. There you go. I'm turning it up to 95, 98. Pull that out and see what you think. Oh, you dipped it further, so.
Oh, you know what, though? That's still pretty darn cool.
If you want to feather that line so it's not quite such a
Line.
line, thank you. I really do speak English. It's It's my second language. I was brought up with American. Okay, go ahead and put it back in all the way. The voltage is lower, so it's not going to do anything. Now, pull it up to a little below where that, there you go. Now, pull it out.
I realize I can't see the line from here.
No, we didn't succeed.
You know what, though? That's okay.
All right. So the TSP will make your hands itch, so I suggest that you take the piece in your hands and you go wash them before you put it in the plastic bag. It's safe to touch now. I turned off the electrical. And there you go.
Can I take it?
Yeah, you can. Does anybody else want to try? You're welcome. All right, come on up. And if you would like me to anodize your disc or your earrings so that you have something to take home that's a rainbow and you don't feel confident doing it yourself, I'm happy to do that for you. All right. When you take it out, make sure that you only handle it by the edges, unless what you really want is a thumbprint pendant. I usually just dump it and then I pick it up by the edges. I'm very technical.
I'm comfortable with me if it's 1,000 degrees.
Okay. Now, would you like to dip anodize it to a solid color? What do you have in mind here?
Let's do like purple and blue.
All righty. So the first thing you want to do is you want to put it on the grabber, the lead. And thread it on that handy dandy jump ring that I added to all these. If you have handled your thingy, just go wash it in soap and water and bring it back in. All right, so a purple is about 75 volts DC, so hold on a second while I turn this down. All righty, go ahead and put it in.
Okay, dipping all the way in?
All the way in, because you want your jump ring to anodize too. All right, give it just a second to come up to voltage. All right, it looks almost done. Pull it out and let's take a look.
Okay.
Is that the color you'd like, or you want to go more purple?
Yeah, let's go more purple.
Throw her back in.
Oh, yeah,
What number are you on?
75 volts DC right now. Go ahead and pull it out. Is that a better color?
Yeah.
All right, so when you say blue, do you want to do a half and half, or do you want to
Yeah,
put blue
let's do
spots on?
half and half.
Okay. Then dip about half of it in, and we're going to go up to 82 and a half, and we're going to see what you think of that color.
Okay.
All right, pop her out.
I think definitely a lot like a darker.
All right, so you're not going to get too dark before you start going into teal, so let's go up to 83.7 because I'm random that way.
Okay.
Pull it out and see what you think.
Yep, that's pretty good.
Is that the color you'd like?
Sure.
All right, there you go. Go wash it in soap and water, and it's all yours. Yeah, well, you can do yours, and I'll do one for you in a rainbow. But come up and watch me do the rainbow, and then you can do yours. So the big thing with doing a rainbow is that you have to be comfortable handling the rheostat and the lead, which is very easy once you've done it for a while, but can seem dauntingly confusing. But if you can walk and chew gum at the same time, you can do this. It just needs practice.